Can you hear me clearly? Is it good? Audio good? Perfect. Okay. So my name is Officer Correa, and I currently have an office at 39 Union Street. So if there's any time that you want to stop by and you want to talk, or just, just get some information about Rutgers PD and how we can help you, you can always stop by my office. I do work Monday through Thursday, 10 hours a day. So I'm usually there 7:30 to 5:30. And if not, that is my phone number down there. You could always reach me at that number. That is my office number, and that's my email address. Hold on, let me see if I can, okay, perfect. Okay, so the background of RUPD is we are dedicated, obviously, to protection of life and property, prevention, detection, investigation of crimes. Our headquarters operates 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, just like any other police department. We are an accredited police department. We have 3 different headquarters for each of one of our campuses, so that means we do have 3 different police departments: Camden, Newark, and New Brunswick. We all operate the same. We do have 3 chiefs still that oversee us, and a director that oversees all 3 departments. The community served, we know we have about roughly 65,000 students. I'm sure that number has probably gone down this semester, but that was as of last year. 15,400 full and part-time staff, which is a large number, and 19,000 on-campus residents. So that's also a large number. That basically shows that we are a city within a city because of the population in which we have. We also, doing the walk that we did the last 2 days, we did also realize that there's about 6,000 to 7,000 students that have agreed to live off campus this semester. So that's also a large number of our students that are living off of campus. So our headquarters is located at 55 Commercial Avenue, which they just changed the address to Paul Robeson, if you were aware of that recently. So that slide does have to get changed. So it's Paul Robeson Boulevard in New Brunswick. There is a bus stop in front of there if you ever need to locate our facility. This is our communication center. It's also open 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's a state-of-the-art dispatch center. This is our non-emergency number. Of course, if there is an emergency, please dial 911, and 911 calls act as a priority. So there's probably about 20 different phone lines there, but if it's 911, it will come in first. Patrol operations, like I stated before, 24 hours, 7 days a week. All of our officers are armed and have full police powers. We actually have statewide jurisdiction because of the amount of buildings that we have in different jurisdictions. So just New Brunswick alone, our campus, right? It's not just New Brunswick. We have Edison, we have buildings in North Brunswick, we have buildings in Piscataway. We're kind of all over the place. So because of that, we have statewide jurisdiction. We patrol areas immediately adjacent to campus also. So my job specifically is the off-campus community police officer. And what that means is I work closely with the off-campus community partnership department. Have you heard of that? Yes, so they're located in 39 Union Street also. So that's where my office is. We share a office together, and we work closely with the off-campus community. So I'm a community police officer. We have a community police officer on every campus. We also have a detective bureau. So whenever there's crime on campus, unfortunately, there's been some activity, right, in our surrounding area. So our detective bureau will go out and investigate the scene. We have security operations. So what our security officers are, they're uniformed. They look a little similar to us, but their color's a little off. You see the light blue. They're unarmed staff that patrol the campus. So they do a lot of things that we don't have to do. So they'll do building lockouts, they'll inspect campus lighting, they'll check all of the emergency phones. I'm not sure if you've seen them, like on the bus stops, the blue lights and all of those. They do all of that work, and they're detailed to special events. So they work a lot of the basketball, football games, all of the special events that occur. They're kind of our support staff, which is pretty good because we need a lot of hands and feet on campus. They also do parking enforcement. So just in case you don't know that, it's not the police officers who are giving you parking tickets, it's the security officers. So they're the ones that are doing that. We also have something called the CSO program. Not sure if you're aware of that. It's a full-time students who are uniformed, unarmed, paid employees. So they also act as a student security guard, which is really helpful. They do a variety of responsibilities. They patrol, they walk. You'll see them sometimes in vehicle, bicycle, Cook Douglas, they'll ride horses. They do event security. They do all of the bag checking. They do resident halls also, like at the yard. If you notice, there's someone sitting there. They do the night mover shuttle. So that's the shuttle that is when the buses are not working. So they're the ones that run that. And they're basically our extra eyes and ears on campus, which is really helpful. Technology. So this is really important and a lot of people don't know. We have over 3,000 cameras. Usually every building, every exit will have a camera on it, and we do have access to that in that dispatcher center that I showed you before. They can real time pick up the footage and they can rewind. It records, I believe, up to 6 months. So there's a huge database that we have and we're always viewing that. Actually, the CSOs, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's actually a post to sit in front of the cameras and watch it on high crime areas that we have cameras located. So that's also a plus for us. Cameras record locally. I just said that. Majority of our buildings have them. Our police vehicles are equipped with audio and video recorders. So whenever we go to a call that requires the lights and sirens, the camera on the police car automatically goes on. So whenever those lights are switched on, the audio and the video record. So that's really good. The officers also we also wear body cams. So we're also required to turn on our body cams whenever we go to a call also, regardless of what the call is, we have to turn them on. So buses and bus shelters also have cameras. Over 80 blue light phones on campus, and that number is growing. We're actually working on a program to increase and to fix those blue lights that we have on campus, and we're actually working with IPNO to make a map so the students know exactly where the blue lights are on campus, which I think is a good idea. Oops. So our security guards do escorts, which is really important. So if you're having a class that, well, this is not going to happen this semester, but hopefully when we come back soon, they provide escort service. So say if you're standing at the bus stop late and you just don't feel safe, or you come out of a class and it's just way too dark and you don't want to walk to your car, you can call the non-emergency RUPD number and we will send the security officer to come out and give you an escort, whether it be a ride or a walk with you to your car, whatever it is you may need, just for your safety. This is the night mover that I spoke about before. That is the phone number. And so these are the hours. It's Monday through Thursday, 3 a.m. to 6:45. And it's when the regular buses are not working. They do not operate on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday because the buses are 24 hours. Well, now there's a different bus schedule, but no one's on campus. So general prevention, dealing with suspicious persons. So we just ask that whenever you feel that you see someone who is suspicious, please call RUPD. It is our job to investigate and to go and check on any suspicions that you may have. A lot of times you are our hands and feet also. You may see things that we will never see. And a lot of times our students and our staff members, they do help us in preventing a lot of crime. So whenever you feel that little hunch, right, we say that gut feeling, please call us. We will go out and check, and we never think that any call is not important. So please call us whenever you think something is suspicious, okay? So if you're approached by someone that makes you feel uncomfortable, don't be afraid to ask for help. Run to a safe location with other staff members. Ensure that the camp supervisors and local law enforcement are immediately notified of persons that act in a suspicious manner. Report all suspicious activity. So we do encourage that. General safety tips: avoid walking on your own, especially at night. Report suspicious activity or persons to the police immediately. Stick to well-lit locations and avoid shortcuts through potentially unsafe areas. So real quick, I just want to give a little spiel for future. If you ever, as an organization, would like to host a self-defense class, my department does provide that free of charge to our students, and I think it's very beneficial. It's just tactics that you may learn just to get away from someone who may be harming you, or just to be alert. It's a really good educational program, and I think that the students usually have a really good time when we provide it. And like I said, it's free of charge. So if you ever are looking for an activity, please reach out to me so that I can set that up for you. So always be cautious. This is the ABCs. Be cautious. Being cautious does not mean being paranoid. Report any areas that appear to be unsafe. So obviously, if you see any of those things happening in the pictures below, please call us. We do go and check every call that we're sent to. Traveling to new locations, this is really important, I would say, especially with international students. It's important to be aware of your surroundings and to know exactly where you're going. Know the route before you leave. Take a few extra minutes to plan your trip in advance. Drive through the area beforehand to become familiar. That's if you can. If you can't, it's okay. Just know where you're going. I mean, with all of the different apps that there is, you know, it's always at our fingertips, so we can know where we're going. Do not openly display and study maps on public streets. Well, if you have to, you do. Just be careful. And this indicates you're a stranger to the community. So just be careful when you're out there. I also like to say, don't display money when you're outside walking, especially. It's just really important to keep it, even say if you're carrying large amounts of money. A lot of our students sometimes do that. And unfortunately, bad things do happen once they're counting their money out, or they're taking money out from the bank, and it's pretty obvious. Sometimes things do happen, but I just ask that you be really careful, that you don't count money out. If someone asks you for money, I always tell our students, do not give them money. I know our students have really good hearts and they want to help people, but I always encourage them that if you're by a store, there's always a food store around the Starbucks or Chipotle. I'd rather you go in there and buy them a meal and give it to them than go through your pocket and start counting your money and them seeing what you have. That's really not a good idea. So just be really careful. We do have a lot of looters lately. I don't know if you've noticed that in the New Brunswick area. So I just really ask the students to be careful, because there have been a few incidents. So if you ever feel like someone is harassing you, please also call us. And I ask you to encourage others to do that too. Property security. So most crimes at Rutgers University are crimes of opportunity, especially theft. This is really big when the students are on campus. There are so many times that you walk into a library or a student center and you just see laptops or cell phones being charged and left alone. Just be mindful of your surroundings. I know we are in a university setting and we should not have to think like this, but unfortunately in the times in which we live, we just have to use a little common sense, and unfortunately we can't trust everyone. We have to be mindful that our university is not just open to students. We are a state university, and because we receive state aid, and we are a research university, so that means that anyone is entitled to come into our buildings and use our property, especially our libraries and our student centers. So just be very careful. If you go to the gym and things like that, when they reopen, just make sure you're using a lock. You're locking your lockers, you're keeping everything safe. And if anything is ever taken, please call us. We do police reports. And a lot of times we do track certain devices down. Our detective bureau will do that. They're really good at that. I would ask that you keep on your location on your laptops or your cell phones. I know a lot of new students probably don't like to do that, so their parents can't track them. But please make sure that you keep that on, because if you lose a device, it's easy to track it. Also, I would ask that you write down all your serial numbers. Anything over $350, it's really important to keep the serial number, because what happens is if it ever gets lost or stolen and you do a police report, we can enter that into a national database. So say if someone in I don't know, East Brunswick gets found with a backpack full of electronics, that police department will enter in all the serial numbers into that database. And if we entered it because it was stolen on our property, it would come up as a Rutgers property. And then that department would call our department and that student will be able to retrieve that item. So it's really important to keep your serial numbers and to write them down. Like I said, anything over that amount, it's really important to write anything, even a bicycle, a cell phone, a laptop, whatever it is that costs over $350. So property security, cell phone, avoid becoming distracted by your cell phone. We see this all the time. We had a really bad semester, 2019, where about 15 students got hit by motor vehicles. And a big reason for that was they were on their cell phone crossing the street, not paying attention. So just really be careful and know your surroundings. Set up a lock screen feature on your phone. Never loan your cell phone to a stranger. That's also happened on campus. Can I please use your cell phone to call my mom? And then the person will run away with it. So just be careful. Property security, I spoke about this a little before. Do not place valuables in an unsecure locker. Ask the gym staff for a free rental lock. All of our gyms will provide a free lock so that you can borrow. You just have to show them your ID and they'll give you a lock. Property security with bicycles. This is also really important for those students that are bringing bicycles to campus. It's really good to buy a U-lock because those are harder to break. The cable lock is really easily broken. Unfortunately, we have a lot of bicycle thefts on campus. So I would advise you to register your bike with RUPD. The link is there. It's really easy. And if you have a really expensive bike, I would advise you not to bring it to campus. There's also a program with the parking department that you can actually rent a bike for really cheap amount, and you can keep it all the 4 years while you're here. They also do have bike lockers, so if you don't want to take it back to your house or to your dorm, you can put your bicycle in the bike locker. Vehicle security. So if you do have a car on campus, we just ask you to be careful. We ask you to take all the electronics away. Do not make them visible. A lot of times people will leave laptop bags in the back seat of the car, or they'll leave something in the console, and then when they come back to the car, the window was broken, and it's very unfortunate. So just make sure you put anything that's valuable in your trunk and you lock it up, or you keep it with yourself. So just be very careful. Residence hall security. Do not prop open doors to residence hall. Only allow people in who are familiar to you, guests to the building. And this is anywhere, apartment buildings, wherever it is that you may live. Always lock your residence hall room door when you leave for just a minute. I know that may sound silly, like why are you putting that there? But unfortunately, a lot of students will not lock their dorm rooms and they'll come back to their room to find someone that they don't know in there. Or they'll leave the dorm room open in the middle. They'll leave it unlocked at nighttime while their roommate is out, thinking that their roommate's going to come back, and they find out that they have a different roommate in the morning that they don't know. So just be very careful. All of those circumstances can be very dangerous. So we just ask you to lock all the doors and to just be very careful. Residence hall security, we just spoke about this. Just make sure that everything is locked. This is even at home. This can be used for anywhere. Just make sure that everything is locked whenever you go out or you're home alone. So Save a Life campaign, this is really important. We ask you to please call 911 whenever you think that someone is in severe danger. We don't ever want anyone not to call us because they think that they're gonna get in trouble. So we just ask if you can't wake them up, if they're vomiting while drowsy or sleeping, blue, cold, pale, clammy, any of these symptoms, please call us. It takes a friend to save a life. And obviously that's gonna lead into my next segment. So the Save a Life campaign is because unfortunately we do have these issues on campus and we just ask you to be aware of them. Like I said, if you do call us because your roommate or someone that is using drugs, it can be anonymous. We don't have to say who called us or who reported it, but we do ask that you report it because it's best for people to get help, and that's what we're here for. Reporting an incident. For emergency situations, we ask you to call 911. And we just ask you to remember a few things, right? We ask you to remember the location and the nature of the emergency, the status of the emergency condition, any immediate threats to life, need for medical or other assistance, and the description, location, or direction of travel. So this is for different kind of situations, but we just always ask you to call. And whenever you call 911, they're always gonna ask you, 911, where is your location? So that's really important, because if the line ever gets disconnected, we can always send an officer out just to check to see what was going on in that area. So traffic safety, this has been really big. We have a whole traffic campaign and a pedestrian campaign that was rolled out in 2019. I'm not sure if you've seen the billboards. We have put up tons of billboards around, so has New Brunswick Police Department. And it's also on the Megatron at the yard. There's a commercial there. We just ask you to be safe when you're crossing, that you pay attention. Like I said, we have 15 students in one semester, and thankfully, all of them were able to be okay, right? There was no fatal car accidents, which was a really good thing. But we just ask the students to be vigilant and just to look both ways and to be careful when they're crossing. So this is just going to be really quick. We add this in here because this is a training that we always do, and we just want students to be aware. Any kind of active shooter situations, we ask you to be really careful and vigilant of your surroundings. An active shooter individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people inside an occupied structure or outside in a populated area. Before law enforcement arrives on the scene, individuals must be prepared both mentally and physically to deal with an active shooter. So nationally, there is a model, and this is what the model is. It's called run, hide, and fight. So whenever you hear anything, when it comes to an active shooter, we ask you to always run. Just run away from whatever it is that you may be hearing, the opposite direction. And if you can't run because of the building or the area that you're in, then we ask you to hide and to conceal yourself until help arrives. And then as a last resort, we never want you to do this as a first resort. If the intruder or someone is coming into your area where you are hiding, we ask you to fight. But that is totally as a last resort. And this is a really in-depth training that I also provide. I just threw this, we throw this slide in there just to show that we do provide this. So if there's another time that you would like this, we can also provide this for your students. Evacuations. So if evacuation and hiding out are not possible, this has to go with the active shooter. Remain calm, dial 911 if possible to alert the police to the active shooter's location. If you cannot speak, leave the line open and allow the dispatcher to listen. When dialing 911, attempt to give the following information to the police. So this is all really important. Unfortunately, we have had active shooter situations around the world, and we have found that by calling 911 and giving us information, it has allowed us to kind of act fast, right? So we have trained in this kind of situation, and as the events have been occurring more frequently, we have received more and more training, which is really good. And with that training has also changed the response time of police officers. So just in the past, before you are aware of Columbine, in the past, before Columbine, the response time was all the officers would wait to gather together, and they realized that that took 17 seconds, which really in reality isn't that long, but when you're in a situation like this, 1 second is way too long. So when the FBI did analyze afterwards what had occurred at Columbine, they realized that it took 17 minutes before officers to enter into that building. And that was way too long. So what occurred was there was a change in policies, and now officers arrive as soon as the first person gets to wherever the active shooting happens, that officer has to respond, even if it's by themselves. So that is a better response time. Law enforcement arrival, remain calm and allow officers instructions. Put down any items in your hands, immediately raise hands and spread fingers. Keep hands visible at all times. Safe location. Once you have reached a safe location or an assembly point, you will likely be held in that area by law enforcement. Do not leave until law enforcement authorities have instructed you to do so. So we do have emergency notifications. I hope you're all signed up for it. That is the website that you can sign up for it. I know that as students and staff members, we do all receive the emails when there is a crime alert. I'm sure we received them recently, right? Unfortunately. So this leads into our next section, crime alerts. Crime alerts are disseminated in the interest of keeping the community informed to increase awareness and decrease the likelihood of victimization. Expanded crime notification systems. So as of 2014, we have really been engaged in the system, and it has really helped our response time and help us disseminate information to our students and staff members fairly quickly, which has been really good. These alerts are sent to you by your Rutgers email address. We are on social media. So that's Nixle, that's Facebook, and we're also on Twitter. So these are this is just some additional websites. If you want to look more in depth to what I was speaking about before, the Department of Homeland Security actually has a few videos out there. So if you would like to look at that on your own time. And also the FBI also has some videos out there. When we do the active shooter presentation for our staff and students, we do provide these videos. It's a longer presentation. It's about an hour and a half, and we do go over a lot more information. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope there's nothing that I missed, but if you have comments, concerns, or questions, please feel free to ask them now.
Okay, Officer Correa, thank you so much for that presentation. Before we get to the questions, I just wanted to have one of our students, Pratik, can you turn on your video?
Sure, David.
Awesome. So Pratik, just for the benefit of everybody else who's in the meeting,
Yes.
can you tell us where you're from and what you're studying at Rutgers?
I'm an international student from India, and I'm in my second year of graduate studies. I'm doing masters in industrial and systems engineering. Okay,
great. So thank you for joining us. That's just to let everybody else get a little bit familiar with who's on the meeting.
Right.
And Officer Correa, I'm going to direct a couple of questions to you, and then we'll open it up generally for people that have questions. One of the things as you were presenting, you were talking about high crime areas and how the video surveillance is used more in the high crime areas. So just from your knowledge, what areas around the campus are considered high crime? And a follow-up question would be, are those areas patrolled by RUPD more frequently?
So the high crime areas would be, so it would be the wards. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that terminology. So that would be off campus. So we would call it the 5th and 6th wards, which typically is behind the student center all the way back to, I would say, maybe Dick Street. Do you guys know where that's at? Back there by Hamilton, all the way back?
Yeah, you're talking about the College Avenue Student Center, correct?
Yes, the College Ave Student Center. So I would say that entire area, we call that the 5th and 6th ward. And we would say that that's a little more. We did just have a crime alert that occurred in that area. Unfortunately, there was 2 crime alerts that we received in the last 2 weeks. And they were really unfortunate offense that occurred back there. So we do patrol that area. So it's on a, I don't want to say a need, but that is off campus. So technically it is New Brunswick's area. But what we do is on the weekend, typically we do patrol back there a lot more because on the weekends, there's just more high activity. But now with the students not being here, we have been patrolling back there a lot more than usually. And since the crime alerts have occurred, our captain has put 2 officers Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to that just be their main area of focus to drive around and patrol. So yes.
Okay,
I hope
that's
that
helpful.
answered your question.
Yeah, that's a very good answer, and it's good
Okay,
to know
okay.
that you know, the RUPD is responding when some of those crime alerts take place, because that's, you know, one thing that certainly can make the students feel uneasy is when they hear about you know, violent crimes or hear about things happening so close to campus.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I would say our area is really not a horrible area typically, right? It's just unfortunately, it's when those people who are not students, unfortunately, that's actually what occurred in the last 2 events. It's usually not our students that are ever part of these situations. So it's unfortunate. There was a party back there, and then another time it was just someone who was off campus that came into our on-campus area. So that's really unfortunate. So we do try to patrol those areas as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
Dan, I see your hand up. So let's get to you next. What's your question for Officer Correa?
Officer Correa, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I think what it conveys to me is that there are people whom you could ask questions if you get into a situation like I'm going to describe. I'm not sure that there's a clear answer, but just to give you an example of something that might have led to a call last year. We had a student from India who was hit by an uninsured driver.
Mm.
A police report was filled out. The student spent the night in the hospital, and then they called me in, and we were trying to figure out what steps to take. When we got the police report a couple of days later, turns out that the person in whose name the car was registered had an insurance company listed, but it was expired. And so the students were inclined to go and track down this driver or track down the driver because there was an address, and then try to, you know, sue that driver. And I said, you're not going to find him. You're not going to find the owner of the car. You're not going to get, I mean, maybe eventually you'll take that step. But in the meantime, we pursued the various insurance companies, the coverages that were available, including one from the state of New Jersey that covers this kind of a situation. And I think that that I don't know how much the hospital said it was going to be $31,000. I don't know what, if anything, they got from the insurance coverages. My dentist, to whom I referred him, has gotten some money from the insurance companies, but I'm not sure whether he got everything he wanted. So I suppose my question to you is, in that kind of a situation where the inclination of the students was to go track down that driver or the owner of the car, what kind of advice would you have, do you think I would have gotten if I had called you guys at that time?
So did we do the actual police report, or was
I
it?
think it was New Brunswick Police who did the police report. I went to the city. I went to
Okay.
the New Brunswick Police Department.
It most likely.
It was on Hamilton Street. He was crossing Hamilton Street.
Okay, so it most likely was New Brunswick. I always advise our students that if you get into a situation like that and you just want to, you need someone to answer questions for you, you can always call us, even if you didn't do the report for us. Like I said, we have a detective bureau. I did give you my phone number, so we can always give you advice on what we think you should do. My advice would be that that was a good call for the student not to go to the house. I think that was a really good call. You just never know who the person is that you're dealing with. So I would always try to get authorities involved, and whoever did the police report probably could have helped you through those steps and probably given you some legal advice on what to do, or kind of, I know that the city of New Brunswick, they work with a lot of lawyers and a lot of law firms. So they probably could have gave you some direction in which way to go there, especially when it has to do with doctor bills and things like that. That's really expensive. You do want to retrieve some of that because that's just an unfortunate event that student didn't ask to happen, right? So I would have just called them and asked them for some advice. And I'm sure someone there would have helped you out. And like I said, you can always call us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
thanks, Officer Correa. It's good to know that your office is a resource for students when things like that happen, because, if Dan had not been able to step in and provide some guidance in that situation, a lot of students
Yeah.
they're not used to dealing with insurance companies and, high hospital bills and things like that. So it's good to know that your office is a resource for them as well.
Mhm. I know the hospital bills are astronomical. My daughter got her appendix removed and it was $38,000.
Wow.
That's insane. And 18,000 of it was for her room and board. It wasn't even for the surgery. And we were only there 24 hours. I was like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. The high cost of medical care.
Yes.
All right. Let's open it up to anybody else who has a question for Officer Correa.
Hi, Officer Korea. Thank you again for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I have a question. So I'm no longer a Rutgers student, but I have this experience when I was on Piscataway campus, Bush campus. And at that time, I was living off campus. So there's one night that the class went over a little bit and I have to like walk back alone at night. So at that night, I was like feeling unsafe. So I called a number that I found on the RUPD website, but I was told that the escort was only for students who live on campus, and they could not unfortunately they could not escort me to my place off campus. At that time, I think that was 2017 when I was first here in Rutgers. So I don't know if things have been changed recently, or I don't know. That's what I was told at that time.
Okay, so yes, that does occur unfortunately because just keep in mind that our escorts are not sworn officers and they are unarmed. So what happens is in the past there was someone who got hurt, and so they don't like to take that liability anymore. So if you're really feeling in danger, I would ask to speak to a police officer and explain your situation. I know it already occurred, and I apologize for that you didn't get any help. But I would advise students to ask to speak to a police officer and just tell them that you feel unsafe, even if it is that they have to follow behind you, if they're not giving you a ride, and say you're walking, and that will help you out. You have to I know it's all about communication, and unfortunately sometimes people on the other end aren't receiving exactly what you're saying or how you're feeling. So I would just say, even just ask to speak to a supervisor. That always helps also. A lot of times patrol supervisors are always at headquarters and they're always trying to figure out situations. So I would advise students to just ask for a supervisor, police supervisor, to help them out, because they really feel unsafe. And that's a safety measure, even if it is that they refer you to Piscataway Police Department so they can help you. You're still getting help from somewhere if Rutgers can't provide you with that resource. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you for the answer. That
No
helped.
problem.
Yeah, Officer Correa, thank you for addressing that issue. I think, a lot of international students, when they first arrive at Rutgers, many of them are not going to have access to a car. And so, they'll be walking or taking the Rutgers bus, to and from classes and things of that nature. So, I know the escort obviously would have walked her to her car, if that was the issue. But a lot of times when students are new, they won't have cars. And then the other issue, and Doris and May can give some input to this if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think the idea of getting an answer from somebody in authority and then going the extra step of asking to speak to a supervisor, it would be very unlikely that somebody from another culture would do that. So that's another training point where maybe we can step in and just encourage them in that way. So.
Yes. And also just a little insight. I know that we have a lot of international students that have, I know this was last year, I'm not sure about the case this year, that lived on Hamilton Street. And so I was actually working with the parking department in the city of New Brunswick to see if we can get one of our shuttles to actually go down there, because that was another issue we were having. They were requesting escorts, but like I said, they're unarmed security guards and they can only stay on campus. That's just their policy. And I really tried everything to try to fix that situation. And it estimated that just to get a shuttle, every route to go down that, it was probably about 3 blocks, it was going to cost $500,000. So guess
Wow.
the answer was that they gave me a try, but no. So I really did try. I was actually even working with the director of the international students. I forget her name. She's a sweetheart. I can see her face, but right now I just drew a blank. But we were all working together to try to get the shuttle going, and it just unfortunately did not happen.
Yeah, well, thanks for making the effort. Actually, May's question brings up another question that I had, and that's the use of Uber and Lyft and some of the services that are provided. So now that we're living in an age where, you know, everybody's got a cell phone and everybody can, you know, have access to these apps. Let's say a student is in a situation where they're, you know, getting out of the library or getting out of class late at night, and they want to take an Uber back to their off-campus place. What kind of suggestions would you make as far as staying safe in that kind of situation?
So that's a very good question. We actually just made flyers before the whole quarantine, and we wanted to have a whole kind of town hall meeting about that because of a lot of things that have been happening with Uber and Lyft. And we actually have had some reports on campus of students calling us about just some really uneasy rides. So we would say that just be careful, especially in going into the car, right? That's really important. And I'm glad that Uber and Lyft, I think they've added some precautionary measures. They've actually added the picture of the person, which is really good. They ask you to check the license plate. There's all of these things, tracking. I think even Uber has something that one of your friends can kind of track you, right? So they are adding and they are aware of this, but I just ask you to always check. This is my big thing. I have a 18-year-old daughter, so she does use Uber and Lyft sometimes. And I always tell her before she gets in there, a lot of people don't know this, when you open the door has a child safety lock measure. And if I always ask her to check that, because a lot of times a lot of people don't know that if you're not into vehicles, like especially if you don't have your own vehicle. And I always ask people to check that, because if the safety lock is on, then you're not going to be able to get out of the car, even if it's an emergency and you want to jump out of the car. So I would say check that. Always check the license plate. If you want someone to track you, I would also say use that safety measure, and always have your cell phone ready to call 911 or just call someone to help you, and always report something that seems suspicious, even to Uber, right? Because a lot of times people will say, you know, that ride felt really uneasy, but it was all right. They usually push it off, and then unfortunately that ride becomes several rides, and then that person ends up doing something to someone which could have been avoided, right? Because Uber and Lyft will flag people if they get negative report of their riders. So we did have an incident like that on campus, and I'm very happy that the female did report it. I actually took the police report and I was able to call Uber, and they did actually flag him, and he wasn't able to be a driver anymore. So.
Okay, thank you for that. And also gets back to the slide that you shared earlier. If you see something, say something. Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody else with any questions for Officer Correa?
I have a question. So first, thank you, Officer Correa, and thanks to the police department, all the officers there to make us to the number 3. And so that is a great achievement. Yeah, and good news for all of our students. I also took a look on our websites, in which is publishing a lot of very good information there. And also I saw the 2020 Safety Matters. And so there, it's set a lot of things of the record. So one of them is about the fire log. And so I checked that there are a number of unintentional fire and cooking. So I would like you to speak about that and how to be safe when cooking and also how to prevent that.
Okay, so I'm gonna do my best. Fire's not my forte, but I will do my best. That is true. A lot of our fire alarms come from unintentional cooking mistakes. So a lot of times students will, even if it's just making popcorn, they'll walk away and forget about it. So then there's a huge mess there, and the alarms are going off. We've had sprinklers go off in apartment buildings, and then they have flooded the whole building. So we just ask you that if you're cooking, make sure that you stay there. Our students sometimes are so preoccupied and so busy trying to do so many things at one time. When you're cooking, it's not a good idea to have that mindset. So please, if you decide that you're going to cook something, just stay there and finish, and then have a nice meal, right? Enjoy yourself. But we just ask you to pay attention, to be vigilant, especially when you're dealing with like oils and things like that, that you're frying. Just be very careful. Make sure that you're keeping the temperature low. I know a lot of students that are just learning how to cook. They usually will go to their dorm rooms or their apartments and their fire is all the way up. Just be very careful. You got to remember, things splatter. The fire can rise and get on the wall, and then you just have a huge mess there, and it can become very dangerous. So we just ask you that if you're going to start cooking, stay there until you finish. Okay? And we have a really good actually fire department. A lot of universities do not have the resources that Rutgers University has. I'm actually very proud of that. We are the only university that has 3 ambulances in the whole state. So that's a really good accomplishment. So whenever one of our students are hurt or injured, it's our EMTs and our ambulances that are going to transport the students, which is actually pretty amazing. Their response time, a lot of times they get there even faster than the police officers get there. So it's a really good resource. And we also have firefighters, trained firefighters that work with our EMTs on campus that respond to all fire alarms. We have a fire lieutenant that works 24 hours, 7 days a week. There's about 8 of them, and they are trained firefighters. So that's also a really good resource that we have here on campus. A lot of people don't know that, but I'm bragging a little bit.
No, that's good. You're allowed to do that. Doris, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much, Officer
You're
Correa.
welcome.
Okay, I had another question, and you sort of covered this a bit in the presentation, but I think it's worth repeating, because one of the things that we want to do is try to prevent our students from becoming the victims of crimes. So let's say, for example, a student is actually physically assaulted, or someone comes to them with a gun or a knife and demands money. What would be like your advice, or kind of the checklist that you would go through with somebody who's actually being threatened either with physical harm, or somebody wants to take some of their property?
So that's a really good question. And I'm going to give my little ad for our class, our self-defense class. We actually go over that in our self-defense class before we start it. We go over and we emphasize that nothing is more important than your life. And that means money or whatever possession that you may have. So if someone is trying to attack you or attacking you with a knife or any kind of weapon, we ask you to just give them what they're asking for. We don't ask you to fight them back. We just ask you to give them, if it's money, if it's your cell phone, if it's your backpack, whatever it is, just give it to them, because we believe that if that's what they're after, then that's what they're gonna take, and they're just gonna go. Hopefully they're gonna leave you alone. So we just ask that once you give it to them, you just try to find an opportunity to run. We never ask students or staff members to stay there and try to fight. We do ask you to just try to get away from that situation as best as possible. So yes, so I actually teach, it's called a RAD class. RAD stands for Rape, Aggression, Defense. So what it is, it's a 12-week class, and we meet once a week. And it's only for females, unfortunately. Gentlemen, you can't join. But it's to kind of give females tactics and kind of give them that inner voice to know that they can fight back, that they can protect themselves, and that there's ways that you can get away from perpetrators that are trying to harm you. So it's really intense. It goes into all different kinds of things. If someone's trying to snatch your bag, even if someone's trying to kidnap you and grab you, we teach you how to get out of grab holds and all those different things. We teach you to use your voice. I know a lot of probably women, they won't scream or they'll just get panicked. So every movement and every question that we ask the women to yell in the class so that they can get comfortable yelling no or stop. So if we ask them to stick out their hands, we say stop. So every movement and everything that we do, we get them to use their voice, because our voice is the most powerful thing. And just to kind of give you an example of that, we had a female who was attacked probably about 4 years ago on our campus. And while she was being attacked, she was screaming. And if it wasn't for her screaming, 2 gentlemen wouldn't have heard her and come to her rescue. So that was really a good tactic that she used, at screaming, even though unfortunately she was attacked and sent to the hospital, but they were able to stop the attack while it was in progress, which was a really good thing. And who knows, if she wasn't screaming, what would have happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, thank you, Officer Correa. We're just about to the end of our time. So does anybody have any final question or comment for Officer Correa?
I have a kind of a question come suggestion, if you can say, like currently, like last 6-8 months, we are not using the bus transport at all. But then prior to that, I have like traveled through Rutgers buses for like 4 to 6 months. And there's one thing I've observed is during the off college hours, or like I'm in a graduate school, I had classes from evening 6 to 9. So we used to get back on the bus at 9:40, or sometimes according to schedule at 10. So I found out that there are quite a few, like during these off hours, there are like few homeless people, or like few non-Rutgers people on the Rutgers buses. So if Rutgers security can do anything about it, like it's not that every time they may be intimidating, but when you're alone in a bus, or like during those times, even during now when they have restarted the bus transport, it's usually the non-Rutgers public that maybe at times seem intimidating on the bus.
I thank you for that question. I totally agree with you. Unfortunately, it's something that our security or police cannot do unless unless they're harassing you or doing something that they shouldn't be doing. It's because the state university, we provide free busing for everyone because of the funding that we provide. So the buses are free for anyone to use. And unfortunately, some people take advantage of those services. I totally agree with you. It should be a safe place. And that's exactly why our bus drivers are trained. They're trained to call the police department whenever there's an issue. And we always ask the students, right? See something, say something if you feel uncomfortable. There's actually a new feature that we have, and it's called Text RUPD. So instead of calling us, you can actually text the police department. And what that provides is that the people don't hear you calling the police, right? So then they won't look at you like, oh, this person's calling the police on me. No, you can text and you can say, hey, I'm on this bus, I feel uncomfortable. And an officer or security officer will come out and check just to make sure that everything's okay. I also want you to know that our buses are equipped with video cameras, and there's also audio. So the audio isn't always on, but whenever there's a situation on the bus drivers do hit a button and then it records audio. But the visual is always on, and that goes right to RUPD's cameras. Okay, but I do apologize about that. I know it's part of the system, and we do get those complaints a lot, but we just ask you call us. That's what we're here for. That's what we get paid for. So if you feel uncomfortable, please call us. All right.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Officer Correa, on behalf of all of our volunteers and students, I'd like to thank you for making this presentation. Also, thank you for letting us know about the self-defense classes. That's something that we can definitely promote with the international students, in the coming weeks and months. And like I said, this is an issue that we want to revisit again in anticipation of more students coming in January. This is something that we'd love to roll out again to any new students to the area.
Okay, perfect. It was a pleasure. Nice meeting you all.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining. And we look forward to seeing you at our next workshop next Thursday. So thank you everyone and have a great night.
Yes,
Thank you.
stay safe, everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right, bye.